We're going to focus more closely now on that New York Times reporting about that Appeal to Heaven flag seen flying outside Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito's New Jersey beach home last year. The flag has origins dating to the Revolutionary War, but is now associated with Christian nationalism and efforts to overturn President Biden's 2020 election win. The flag was also carried by rioters at the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021. Our White House correspondent, Laura Barón-López, has been covering this and joins us now. So, Laura, you've reported on this flag before, but tell us more about how it's become popularized in recent years.
As you noted, Jeff, this flag dates back to the Revolutionary War. It was used by the colonies a lot during that war, but now its connotations have changed. It's very different. And in recent years, it was popularized by a pastor named Dutch Sheets, a leader in what's known as the New Apostolic Reformation. And they believe that it's destiny for the U.S. to be a completely Christian nation. And I spoke to Matthew Taylor, an expert on Christian nationalism and a Protestant pastor with a Protestant scholar, with the Institute of Islamic, Christian, and Jewish Studies, and he described the modern symbolism of that flag.
I would say it has become a symbol of right-wing Christian extremism, of Christian supremacy, of aggressive Christian nationalism, especially built around ideas of spiritual warfare and fighting against the demons that they believe have taken over the United States. So it attaches itself to all these different things, and it especially connotes support for Donald Trump. And today, to fly the flag is in many ways to reference January 6th, to point back to this other moment where people believed that they were appealing to heaven to see an election overturned.
So as Taylor says, the flag was popularized by the New Apostolic Reformation, but it has become much bigger to represent the 2020 election lies.
Well, tell me more about this movement and how it's grown.
So leaders in the New Apostolic Reformation, like Dutch Sheets, who I mentioned, who helped popularize the flag, are strong supporters of Donald Trump. They were some of the first Christian leaders to rally around him in 2016. And this movement, specifically, just to expand on that, Jeff, believes in Christian supremacy, believes that Christianity should be the official religion of the United States, ending any separation of church and state, and trying to enact their vision of a Christian society. And as the popularity of that New Apostolic Reformation has grown, so has Trump's popularity amongst Christians and evangelicals. And these Christian nationalists have essentially worked since 2015, Matthew Taylor said, to get more Republican lawmakers and government officials to fly this flag. And as we reported earlier this year, House Speaker Mike Johnson has this Appeal to Heaven flag, has put it outside of his Capitol Hill office. And Johnson's office told us at the time that they did not see any affiliation with January 6th in him putting this flag outside of their office. They denied that wholeheartedly and said that the speaker simply liked the historical, the history of the flag going back to the Revolutionary era. But key context here, Jeff, is that there's always been an undercurrent of violence attributed to this flag, whether it's the Revolutionary War history, but more commonly now, which is that this movement that has really popularized it believes in spiritual warfare.
We'll unpack the context around this inverted American flag that, according to the New York Times, was seen flying outside Justice Alito's Virginia home shortly after the election.
That flag, which was an upside-down American flag, was also a flag that was carried by rioters on January 6th, and that flag was flown outside Alito's Virginia home 11 days after the insurrection, 3 days before President Biden's inauguration, and it flew for multiple days out there, according to the New York Times. And I spoke to Jodi Kantor for PBS News Weekend a few days ago, and she said that Alito hasn't answered some key questions, whether it's about he doesn't believe in the peaceful transfer of power, if he is or isn't aware of the connotations around that upside-down flag.
So how does this fit into the bigger picture of right-wing extremism?
So there were two other examples of extremism from Trump and his allies this week, Jeff, that we want to highlight. And on his Truth Social account, Trump posted a video that referenced a, quote, unified Reich if he's elected in November. Trump's campaign said that that was reposted by a staffer. It wasn't a video the campaign created, and that they weren't aware of that reference in the video. But this isn't the first time, Jeff, that Trump has echoed Nazi Germany. He has repeatedly talked about migrants, quote, poisoning the blood of the country on the campaign trail, which historians point out that is a direct reference to Adolf Hitler and his use of the terms blood poisoning. And then Trump took to Truth Social also this week, claiming that the Justice Department authorized the use of deadly force against him during their search of Mar-a-Lago, claiming that Biden's FBI wanted to assassinate him. And so I spoke to a Yale historian, Timothy Snyder, who said, when you look at this in the big scale of things, Jeff, that ultimately Trump's comments about his FBI trying to assassinate him is essentially a classic tactic used by fascist movements, that they want to get a monopoly on victimhood, so that way they can justify any actions they take, whether it's overturning an election or using violence against their enemy.
All right, let's pivot a bit because Donald Trump picked up the support of Nikki Haley this past week. How does that remake the electoral landscape so far as we know?
I spoke to Jeff Duncan, the former lieutenant governor of Georgia. He's a Republican who says that he's going to vote for Biden. He said he doesn't think this ultimately will sway that many of those Nikki Haley moderate Republican voters, that he believes that there are still a strong segment of them that could be persuaded to vote for Biden. Biden's campaign is going after them and says that they are going to hire a staff, they told me, to specifically target moderate Republicans and independents that are Nikki Haley supporters.
Laura Barone Lopez, thanks so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.